Hey, so we've been going live for a little bit and it took me a minute, but this video is about how to change your programming and limiting beliefs. If you feel stuck and don't know how to change your life, it's time to watch this video. In it, Barbara Daoust talks about how changing your programming and limiting beliefs can help you change and achieve anything. Barbara helps us navigate change and shares why daily habits and behaviors are crucial to our success. In this video, it's a must watch see for anyone who wants to make a change for the better. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, and you're in for a wellness driven ride. I'm looking forward to introducing you to today's guest. Barbara Daoust is an acclaimed success and business mindset coach, author, and inspirational speaker. Barbara shows entrepreneurs, business owners, and individuals how to break through their fears, limitations, and negative mindsets to achieve outstanding results in their personal and professional lives. Barbara spent most of her career in theater arts, film, and television as a director, acting coach, writer, and producer. Her search for consistently dramatic and lasting results led her to become a certified Thinking into Results consultant with the Proctor/Gallagher Institute. She now blends her 25 years of acting, directing, and writing experience, inspiring people to play a bigger game and say goodbye to procrastination and perfectionism so they can achieve their dreams, goals, and aspirations. Please help me welcome Barbara.
Hi, April.
Hi, Barbara. It's such a pleasure having you on the Wellness Driven Life Show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Oh, thank you. Well, you are one of the most inspirational women that I have had a pleasure of meeting. You have been a lighthouse in my world. Can you tell our audience a little bit about you?
Oh my goodness, I was listening to you introduce me and I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. It's always inspiring to hear somebody else, speak of oneself and one's achievements. Um, so there's, just so much to share. And mostly I could say that I lived my life by default, until I discovered these principles that I now teach people. And I work with, mindset as well as spiritual laws and combine business principles and success principles to really achieve the dream and the bigger parts of ourselves as well as the better version of ourselves, and to start to value the talents and gifts that we are naturally born with. So it's been quite a journey that I've been on, and it took some amazing, let's say, changes in my life for me to wake up.
So, Barbara, that is true, and I know that you've talked to me a little bit about that. Can you share with our audience kind of what were some of those changes where you had to really reinvent yourself?
Yeah, the reinvention process was quite some process and took quite a bit of time. But essentially, as you said, for 25 years, I was in the entertainment business and I was on a trajectory of, just growing my practice. And I had an acting academy and I worked with a lot of celebrity
Mm.
young professionals. And I have a master's in directing from UCLA. I ran a theater company in San Francisco. I had a show at the Kennedy Center. I had a lot of success, but it wasn't without tremendous anxiety and always trying to survive. And
Mhm.
but at the same time, I just had this passion, like the wellness driven life show is the title of your show, but I was definitely driven. I don't know that it was wellness driven. It was more, you got to do what you got to do to survive. And as
Survival driven, yeah.
yeah, I was I was a struggling artist with a struggling artist mentality, not understanding my worth because I was always depending on other people and
Mm.
their acceptance or approval of me, which was the way that I was programmed most of my life, as most people are. And, and I was, but along the way, I'm doing the same thing now. I was always helping other people have amazing success. I've helped a lot of people become millionaires or highly recognized. But I wasn't doing it for me, April.
Yeah.
And it took the the sudden loss of my husband 2 months before our 25th wedding anniversary for me to, go down a different path. And the tragedy, I capsized and essentially closed down shop. I closed down my private acting academy, all my private practice, all the work I was doing on sets, and, and decided to just kind of be in my misery, just really be miserable. And then after that, I found his mother dead, and that was just a year later, and then my father died, my best friend died, my brother-in-law died jumping out of a plane and his parachute didn't open, and then my cat died, and I was just really a puddle on the floor of, what is going on and what is happening to me in my life. So I was really a victim, of the circumstances, and went on a journey. And I really went on a soul journey to discover why was change so complicated. And I studied in a master's program in spiritual psychology, as well as I certified in a law of attraction success academy. And then it was in 2013 that I met Bob Proctor and became certified as a thinking into results consultant. And that's when all the pieces started to come together, where I could really see that, I mean, these other programs were very beneficial as well, but I was there. I had no intention of coaching or consulting. I just had the intention to heal myself. And through these other processes and programs, I started to work with people, but I started to feel better about myself and I started to apply and walk the talk, and really commit to the journey of mastering these life principles and concepts versus just being a teacher telling everybody else what to do. And then I started to see new results in my life and realized that I had spent most of my life seeking approval outside of myself rather than really designing on the inside and listening to who I truly am and shifting the programming that I grew up with and my life experience of programming and altering. I've studied neuroscience for 8 years on top of working with a lot of clients and changing their programs, their paradigms, so to speak, and we're all dealt, a different set of paradigms.
Yeah.
So, I had to learn about my own and make the changes, and it's a forever lifelong process.
Oh my gosh, it is. And Barbara, you went into so many things there, and there are very few people who have experienced the massive amount of grief that you have experienced, back to back to back to back. And without going too far back or into too much detail, I mean, I would love for you to describe a little bit about, where you were, because I feel like that was really where you had the biggest shift, you know, after the loss of your husband and then all of these family members and eventually your cat. What was that experience like for you?
Well, I have to say that, it really wasn't at all pleasant. You know, I drank myself into a coma every night for about 3 years.
Mm,
I was what's called and considered passive suicidal. I had what's called situational PTSD, witnessing my husband. My husband was diagnosed with fourth stage lung cancer on May 5th and gone 3 weeks later on May 31st. So it was a very traumatic experience to witness. And then I witnessed my father passing in front of me, my best friend passing in front of me, and finding my mother in law, as I said. And there was really a lot of brain chemistry. What a lot of people don't realize is for people who are grieving, um, grief depletes our serotonin levels in our bodies. And if you don't have serotonin in your body, it's very challenging to find the happy factor. And I had always been a very positive person, and so I thought, happy person. But I wasn't able to have that viewpoint because I saw a biofeedback doctor and was told that my serotonin levels were so low that I was borderline dying. And,
Wow.
but that was almost good news to me because that's what I really wanted. I just wanted to be on the other side with everybody. Um,
Mhm.
and, not only do you lose, your loved ones in this on this plane on in this real world, but there's a lot of other losses from friendships to, identity to professional relationships to
Yeah.
people disappearing and, not being able to cope with somebody who's grieving. I understand it, you know, so there were a handful of friends who remained by my side. Bless their hearts.
Mm.
It was challenging. And but I can say that I really was miserable and choosing to drink to anesthetize my pain. I had never been a drinker. Um, but a lot of what I experienced, April, has helped me understand the people who are in that state, people who are not just grieving, but people who might be victims or traumatized or
Yeah.
um, I just have a different understanding. I would never judge anybody who is, who takes their life, mostly because the brain chemistry can create a psychotic episode and, you know, they may not even know that they're doing it. So there's so much to us, and to
Yeah.
better understand in the work that I do, I help people understand the connection between the spiritual, the intellectual, and the physical world.
Yeah.
So a lot of us are just focused on either physical, or we're focused on either spiritual, or we're focused on the intellectual, but it really takes all three working together to, to help us create our fullest potential.
Yeah. Absolutely. So there's definitely not one bucket, there's more, and finding the balance in all of those. I love how you highlighted the serotonin level aspect, because and it brings me to think you know people do die of loneliness, of
That's right.
grief.
That's
And
right.
so that's a really good scientific aspect of that, of what our bodies are doing on a biological level
Mhm.
when we are that sad and that hurt and in so much grief and pain and sorrow. And painting the picture of, you just want to be with the ones that have crossed over,
Mhm.
and why wouldn't you? And then going into the aspect of, you really do find who your friends are, the ones who will be in it with you and hold your hand along the way. Because I know we've talked a little bit about before that not everybody can handle that,
No,
that amount of heaviness, that amount of grief, and stick with you, because it's hard not to get sucked down with you.
that's right.
So, incredible story, Barbara, incredible testimony. And yes, you're able to relate. I feel so much that we are given these times in our life, these experiences in our life, in order to relate on a human level with those who do experience the same. So, we're going to go to a quick commercial. And when we get back, we're going to dive in a little bit of more about how we navigate through those changes. Stay tuned. So let's talk a little bit about, when we're so deep into a grieving time, things that we get to do to navigate ourselves out of that? What are things that help rise those serotonin levels?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's challenging. I would say that the people around me who supported me, the
Mm,
kindness of strangers, even the kindness, people just don't realize the power of kindness.
yeah.
And I had so many gifts given to me from a handful of people that truly, April, I felt obligated to stay alive.
That's a good, you know what, Barbara, that makes a lot of sense to me. So much because I've been there where I didn't know if I wanted to go on it, and then this friendly person comes along, or there's someone in your life where you do feel obligated. You're like, well, it just wouldn't be right, would it,
That's
if
right.
I wasn't here, because they showed me so much love and compassion. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I never really thought about it that way. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's other things. I mean, through the gifts, I started to just travel and, somebody gifted me a pottery class. And when I was in the pottery class,
Mm.
it was a grounding method, because I couldn't stop looping the images of people dying in front of me.
Right.
And that looping was very intense. And no matter how much I tried to do brain control, mind control, meditate, any of that, the biggest form of meditation for me was to be on a potter's wheel and just watch the clay go around and around and around and around.
Mm.
And I had lost my memory. Like, that's how traumatized I was, where to the point that I asked my mom 6 months after I lost my husband, Patrick. I said, "What was my grandmother's name?" And
Mm.
she said, "You don't remember Nan's name?" And I said, "No, I don't remember Nan's name." And she said, "You were named after her, Barbara."
Wow.
And so I realized that, my brain was doing some pretty bizarre things. And
Yeah.
when when I was doing the meditation on the potter's wheel, I finally started to have memories again. And my memories started to come back. And one of my memories was when I was like 8 years old, and I used to go out to the river and dig for clay in the water. And I would make little teapots and paint them the color of the rainbow. And when had this memory on the potter's wheel, I was making a teapot that I ended up painting the colors of the rainbow. I still have that little teapot because it brought me back to just a time in life where things were simple or simpler or very creative, right? And being naturally, we're all very creative, but tapping into creativity and joy and, the spirit of life, that's really what it's all about. And when you're blocked from that, it's how do you find ways to connect to that? So, even for people with anxiety and panic and disorders, I just say, grab something that brings you joy, whether it's your pet, or if you're in the middle of, a highly anxious state, grab an animal and start hugging them and stroking them, or your child, or,
Yeah.
um, even hug a tree, whatever it is that you can lift into a higher vibration, right? A
Yeah.
higher frequency of joy, and then allow yourself to feel that joy. And that's
Mm.
that's most challenging. It's that people, think they might be in joy because they're looking at something and it's, joyful. But you must feel it. It's like
Yeah.
to bring the frequency into your body is probably the most important gift that you can give yourself.
Yeah. Yes, the feeling. And so those are all really great tips and all absolutely raise those serotonin levels. So I love the way that you describe the meditation of the pottery, because it's not only just going within and having the creative aspect of our mind, and especially that's challenging when, like you said, all I'm seeing is dead people rolling over and over in this continuous loop. And that pottery wheel gave you both the physical aspect, so the feeling of what the clay and the water feels like in your hands, as well as the sight of just that spin, 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 kind of like the flame. When we see fire and the flicker,
Um,
we just kind of transport into a whole different world, and that's the meditative state. And so I
yeah,
love that description. I think that's really, really cool and a great tip for anybody who is in this, period of their life of such a strong grief, or where it's so difficult to get out of, to get up from, out off the floor,
yeah,
and out
yeah,
of bed and out of the tub. And
yep.
so I also love the description of community and getting out. You use the word traveling, opening your eyes to new experiences and finding the joy in something. And animals, of course, are angels from heaven,
Mhm.
because they're there to be with us. They meet us on a whole different level. So really, really wonderful.
Yeah,
Um,
it's important that, as one starts to do that, that you listen and tune into the magic around you so that
mm,
whether it's a sign or there's some kind of synchronicity,
yeah.
or like I used to start seeing things that were related to Patrick all over the place, and anything that catches your attention,
Mm,
pay attention to those signs, those messages, because they will be guideposts. They will be sending you in a direction that you may not have otherwise chosen, and that even on the wheel, the thing about working with clay on a wheel is you have to be present, because if you're not present, that clay is flying across the room, and people tell you all the time, focus on the present, focus on the present. But what does that mean? How does one really do that or achieve that when you've got this racing mind, right?
yeah. I think also, going back to when well, I want to hop a little bit actually into, when we talk about self-image, how we feel about ourselves. What does that look like in the big picture of how we show up and how we're able to continue on, how we view ourselves, because it's really hard to look at ourselves in a different way when we're experiencing something so dark. And I loved when you talked about the signs and symbols and the synchronicities, because that's so comforting to me. It's comforting when you think that something outside of ourselves, whether it be God or our higher selves or our loved ones that have passed on, but those little signs, when you start to look out for them, and how comforting that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, I know that the more work that I've done, the power really lies in our vibration, right? It really lies in
Mm,
our
yeah.
frequency. And it really then to grow the frequency within us, you can't the mindset of somebody earning $50,000 a year and the frequency is not the same as somebody who's earning $500,000 a year. It's a feeling place, and to access
Mhm.
that feeling place is to really break up with your old self. And so how do you break up with your old self? And that self-image piece is really the battle you're having within and the innermost dialogue that you don't tell and share with anybody, from imposter syndrome to feeling like a fraud to feeling like you're not enough. All of that is just programmed and hardwired into the brain and neural pathways. And to create new neural pathways and roadways is really the work here. And to do that, one must implant, embed, over and over and over again, a new idea that then becomes a belief, because a
Yeah.
belief is just a thought we have over and over again that we accept as the truth. So if we've grown up with the concept that you've got to work hard for your money, we're hardwired. It's in the neural pathways. And so the brain is going to go looking for the evidence that it is hard to earn money. because it's already in that groove, it's already in that program. And most people are not even questioning the program. They're not even questioning their identity and their self-image. And even when I was working alongside celebrities in the entertainment business, my self-image, I thought, was strong and confident. But when I think about it now with what I know, my self-worth and my self-value, I mean, if I told you what I was making then alongside these celebrities, it's like that would be different now. And because I understand self-worth and self-value, and I understand the concepts and the principles of how to achieve an identity outside of the one you're already identifying with.
Right.
That comes down to a lot of choices, a lot of design, and then allowing yourself to feel like, so for example, when I first started with Bob, I wanted to work in corporate, and I had never worked in corporate before. So having had been an acting coach, I dressed in what I thought was corporate uniform clothes. I bought my first pair of pump shoes, and I got to my desk at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I pretended. I pretended that I was working with CEOs. And within 2 weeks of that, I was giving a talk somewhere at it was at New York Life, actually. And this man comes up to me and he said, I'd like to, talk with you. I'm a CEO. I'm like, who introduces themselves as a CEO, right? So that's the kind of sign I'm talking about, right? The kind
Yeah.
of synchronicity. And then it was like, oh, you're a CEO. I did not feel confident or even feel like I could be the person for his company at the time. It was just more letting me know I was aiming in a direction and it was starting to come to me. And who did I have to be to believe that that was mine to have?
Mm.
And when we're ready, it's sometimes, it's getting ready to get ready to get ready. But it's, if you listen to, universe has brought you this opportunity, then who do you have to be in order to create and to manifest it in a way that it actually becomes a part of your life?
Oh, wow. That's deep. And you talked a little bit earlier about self-worth. So when we come back from this commercial, let's dive a little deeper into that. Stay tuned.
Grace Collagen Elixir controls the gene switches which activate collagen creation and disables the enzymes that break
On the solution. Are you taking the challenge to become better, a better version of yourself? And what is that inner dialogue? What is that self-talk? What are you committed to? So if you're always focused on what isn't working, you're always going to see what isn't working. So I work with clients, around that inner dialogue and that image. And what is something that you can wear that makes you feel like, I never ever wake up and coach a client in sweatpants or PJs or a house robe. I just don't feel professional. It's
Right.
important to me to feel it and to feel good. And I say to my clients all the time, how long can you let yourself feel good? And it's not just mindset. It's like we can do it physiologically too, from putting our shoulders back, from holding our head high, from opening up our chest. These are all just little tricks and tools and that you can add in your toolbox. And not every trick or tool is going to work for every situation, but you've got a toolbox, to use one or the other or several. And it's really making a choice. Like, I make a choice now, being somebody who is, in the later phase of my life, where, if I see myself in the mirror, I commit to just saying, oh my goodness, you're just so cute.
Yes.
Right? It why, instead of focusing on lines and or wrinkles, or, that this is like, this doesn't look good, I just choose to focus on, well, what really is going to feel good, and that goes to, from, if I'm going to put makeup or hair, or just like an actor does with a character, what is the lifestyle, what are you, choosing to focus on? If you're looking at a bee in a flower, are you focused on that bee's going to sting you, or are you focused on that bee is spreading pollination across,
Hmm.
and as a result, we have more flowers and, more life. It's really, but we're so hardwired for negativity because the brain is hardwired for threat. So about 85% of the time, we're looking for threat. So the brain is going to go look, it's a search engine. It's going to go looking for why you should be threatened. It's just always on high alert. But that's why with meditation and other mindfulness practices, you want to get into what's called your parasympathetic nervous state, right? Not be in your sympathetic, which is you're in survival mode. But most of us have from caveman days, right, transferred the jungle to the city of jungles, right? So that we're still looking for the lions, tigers, and bears. And every time that something bad happens or we think it's not going in our favor, but I just say to everybody, everything is happening for you, not to you. And when you see it's happening for you, then you can look at the contrast and you can look at the what might be considered negative as an opportunity to flip the switch and to start looking, use your brain as a search engine and ask the question. I work with what's called presupposing questions. And you start a question with why am I so successful? Why am I so abundant? Why are things working out for me? Why am I attracting ideal clients or customers or opportunities into my life? And don't answer it with your conscious mind. Let the brain go searching, because our driver is why, not how. And most people get stuck on how. And as soon as we go to the how, then we're going to continue playing a small game based on the identity we already have. So to break up with yourself, it's like Joe Dispenza says, break up with the habit of being yourself means, cut the ties to the past, cut the ties to the relations, cut the ties to everything that you know. But that's not exactly possible for all of us. It's just what are baby steps,
Yeah.
that we can start to take? What's one habit that we can change? What's a word or a theme that we can associate with? It's all about association. Like my word is elegance, and it's important to me to show up elegantly, to think elegantly, to be elegant. And that means even elegant thoughts toward myself. And then from that place, or even who do I admire? Because your personality is your personal reality. And that's based on your habits, behaviors, your thinking mind, and how you act, who you are being. So I say to people, you don't get what you want, you get who you are being. And in the present moment, that means in the present moment, are you focused on, a negative past and a worrisome future? Or in this present moment, are you focused on the things that have worked in your life and the lessons you've gained? And are you creating future memories that you want in your life?
Oh my gosh, Barbara, you just gave so many incredible uh, little tools to use for people. I don't even know if I could keep up a rehash on all of them, but I want to go over a few of them because just brilliance. You have brought so much to the table. And so I want to go from, the beginning where you talked about just this little choice of how you show up and how it makes such a big difference. Like not wearing sweatpants in this world where like we're in front of the screen so much and we're working from home, and even going out to go shopping, the choice that you make of how you are showing up for yourself and others is a big deal. And I've read a lot of things about how successful women, they put their makeup on every single day because that's what they want to present to the world, because that's how they want to be seen and how they want to feel about themselves. And those are you just brought so many great tips.
Yeah.
We're all going to have to listen to this over and over.
But, and April, just on that note, I mean, if somebody feels good in sweatpants and somebody feels good without makeup on, as long as they feel good, then there's no right or wrong here,
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
whatever makes you feel good. That's the most important thing.
I love that. And one way that I like to describe it as, when you really think about physically taking one step forward, what are you walking into? Like, what future you are you walking into? And so that's really cool. And you're correct. It's what do you love? Because we each individually have different thoughts of what our perfect world is, of what, if we could wave a magic wand, what does that look like? And it's not going to be the same for everyone. And that's what's beautiful about it, is because we're all different and we all bring the world different qualities and areas of light. So, and speaking of, I'm going to add in some photos that we have of you. So we've got a little slideshow. And let's talk a little bit about this, Barbara. This is a picture of you graduating. Tell us about this.
Yeah. This is me graduating in 1991 from UCLA with my master's in directing. I really thought that I was going to be a university professor and have some financial stability in the world of theater. And I did apply to over 250 universities and did not get one response.
Oh,
This
wow.
is after I had already had a theater company, after I had already had a show at the Kennedy Center. I had had some success, but I could not be hired. I could not be arrested anywhere. But that's my late husband and my late parents who, my father was one of 14 children and he went to grade 7, and my mother was one of 6 children and she went to grade 6. So it was really important to me to feel educated, and that was a driving force. They were very, very smart people, but and happy people, but lacked education. And so their world was much more safe than the world that I wanted to play.
Mm.
Yeah. And so here I am with the Olsen twins. I was the personal acting coach to the Olsen twins for 10 years. So after I told you I couldn't get arrested as a teacher in the university system, I was at a loss. I just didn't know who, what. And I worked at a talent agency and I was miserable, just miserable. So somebody introduced me, to this opportunity, and it was a really bizarre um, situation of where a producer, a teacher at UCLA who was a producer, told me to go see a psychic, and I was like,
Mm.
"What?" And he said, "Go see a psychic. You need some, direction." I'm like, "What?" And so I went to the psychic and she said, "There's 2 girls in your life." And I said, "No, there aren't." And she said, "Yes, there are. There's 2 girls in your life." And I'm like, "No, there aren't." And 2 days later, I got the interview with the Olsen twins.
Barbara, you really are this testimony of resilience in life. I mean, having over a few hundred no's is incredible, ending up with working with the Olsen twins. And yeah, that's an incredible testimony of resilience, I would say.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I was able to travel the world with them and direct their
Mm.
animated series and direct one of their music videos. And, so I was really, again, on that trajectory of directing for TV at that time. And my contract with the twins ended. They were off to university. And then that's when my husband died suddenly. So that's kind of where the whole rug was pulled out from underneath me. And this is Patrick.
Well, and definitely as life is, oftentimes it's this roller coaster
Yeah.
where you have those extreme highs and those extreme lows. And but what I would say about that is it's always ever changing.
Yeah. Always. Well, and again, it's like the miracle of life, the cycle of life, the like you said, the roller coaster of life. This is Patrick just 3 months before he passed. He did not have any symptoms. He didn't look sick,
Mm.
nothing. And the same thing with my father. He was diagnosed with lung cancer and gone 2 months later. It was just all very, very sudden. So, when people tell you to really give a big hug and remind everybody how much you love them on a daily basis or as often as you can, because they're here right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, give me chills, lady. Okay, so this is a product of your experiences.
I wanted to really leave a legacy to my late husband because of how much I loved him and what an amazing person he was. And this
Mm.
was a book I just couldn't stop writing. I'm not a writer. I do not claim to be a writer. I'm an author because I've written a book, but I just had to get this out. And it's our love story, as
Mm.
well as, the loss of all my loved ones, and then how I was able to navigate the waters, so to speak, back
Yeah.
to um well, back to life in a way that led to a new self, right? And
Yeah.
that new self is really about my true self,
Ugh,
not living someone else's life or not living for someone else. Because really, Patrick was the one who, and I didn't realize how we were pretty independent, but I didn't realize how codependent I was, because he was the
mm,
one who always reminded me of my value. I
yeah.
didn't seek it from anybody else. And so, um, when that source was gone, well, I had to face it on my own.
Yeah. Robert, I didn't know it was possible, but I have tears in my eyes.
Oh,
It's not like I haven't heard this story too from you, but I think I just came to this profound understanding. And I love your title, True Love. That's the love you experienced with him, true self, and really learning that journey to self love. And so beautiful.
thank
So
you.
beautiful. I'm not supposed to cry on my show, dang it. Okay, and then we go into did a collaboration?
Yeah, so I'm in this book called 15 Stories, One Bob. So I was selected to be one of 15 people to write about working with Bob Proctor. So that was quite an honor. And my chapter is the first chapter in the book, and it's called, A Battle Between the Old Self and the New Self. So that's really the journey, that I see. We're always creating more in our lives, but is it what we want? And to be in the
Mm,
identity, how do a lot of people say they want to be millionaires, or they want to have, their fantasy of, being able to travel the world and all of those things. But again, it all comes back to, who do you have to be, in order to start feeling that match, being a frequency, being a match for that frequency. And it doesn't start with hanging out with people who already think the way you think.
right.
you know it's really, you've got to, the opportunity is to, hang out with people who are like-minded in terms of growth, but can pull you up. And how do you change your consciousness with what you already know? So we're really not our minds, right? There's that higher part of ourselves, and most people are trying to change their world with the mind they already have. And that's kind of just a lateral move. You're going to get 1%, 2%, 5% growth. But if you really want to go after the dream, it's about going outside what you already know, getting outside that comfort zone, getting outside that identity, growing into,
Yeah.
the unimaginable. So I tell people that I work with, that it's the invisible side of success. When you start to create the images in your mind of who you need to be, and start feeling that frequency and doing whatever you can to feel that frequency. If it's abundance, then start finding abundance in your life, whether it's looking at trees, bring that feeling and that emotional piece into your body, and
Mm,
start to really activate. That's why, like, an actor builds their character, right? Through the thoughts that they have, through the actions and the feelings that they have, through the costume that they're wearing and the belief systems that they develop. And that's why somebody who is a certain person can become a completely different character, all based on, living and breathing and devoting themselves to the characteristics,
right.
of the character. And really good actors are those who believe they are the character, that they are one with the character. And so and it's not just, I don't believe that just overnight you can, become, you know, this wealthy person, as is proven with people who win the lottery and they've lost it all a year and a half later, because the frequency is not there.
Right. Yeah. Well, um, I'm gonna go to our next commercial so I can grab a Kleenex because I failed to have them at my area here. And speaking of your incredible books, I saw that Les Brown did a forward to that, and so we're going to one of his commercials. Stay tuned.
Hello, everyone. I am Kim Jacobs, the host of The Kim Jacobs Show, and you all know who's right here with me, Dr. Les Brown. How are you, Dr. Brown?
I'm blessed and highly favored. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time you want to give yourself a competitive edge. If you got a message, you have some knowledge or experience, a story, or if you want to do something adventurous and exciting with your life that can increase your credibility, expose you to millions of people, I'm encouraging you to have your own talk show. I used to have a talk show. That one talk show catapulted me to another level. Now there are more people watching the internet, as you are aware, than television.
Yes.
Come on, somebody.
That's right.
Dr. Kim Jacobs, she trained people on how to have their own talk show. She will train you how to do that. And now with me partnering with her, now you have the combination of an audience, expansive audience. We have over 4 million people in all of our platforms, and the coaching you need to grow your business, to grow your multi-level marketing organization, to draw more attention to yourself in this noisy economy. Go ahead, Kim.
So in the training that I do, Les, I actually do a 6-week training. It's 1 hour per week. And each week I meet with the individuals one-on-one. We go through and we talk about all of the things that's necessary for a show to become a reality. We go from how to actually identify your focus area, what's going to be your ideal customer that's going to be tuning in. We'll talk about how to get guests, how to get sponsorship, how to go about getting your lighting, your branding, and your banners, and everything that you need to know. And guess what, Les? They own their own content at the end of the day.
And that's exciting. Now, if you're ready to create a shift in your business and in your life and increase your cash flow, I want you to go to KimJacobsConsulting.com. It's right there on the screen. KimJacobsConsulting.com. You know, people say opportunity knocks on every door. Right. No, opportunity stands by silently waiting for you to recognize it. So I want you to recognize that this is a time for you. This is an incredible time to have your own talk show. It establishes a level of credibility.
Yes.
And by being exposed to people on a regular basis, it allows you to strategically begin to impact and attract your audience. She can take you in a place in yourself that you can't go by yourself. So go to KimJacobsConsulting.com. That's KimJacobsConsulting.com. Did I say KimJacobsConsulting.com? Yes, you did. Very good. Make sure you go there and sign up for the coaching, and we're looking forward to working with you. You have something special. You have greatness within you. That's my story, and that's Kim's story, and we're sticking to it. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
He's so great.
He is great. And, you know, I got to give such huge shout outs to Kim Jacob, who was my coach for this show. And, you know, Barbara, with you being in, you know, the theater world and producing, et cetera, the importance, I feel, of really putting yourself out there, sharing your story, sharing your light with the world, and the importance of that, especially nowadays, is you know, transformation at its finest, I would say. I think, could you tell me a little bit about that? I know we don't have a little bit of time, but what is it that draws, you know, people to the stage, you know, and sharing themselves? And I think it is them seeking that transformation. Yeah.
Well, you know, I often wondered, because even when I was a young performer, I didn't really know why I even wanted to perform. You know, and then with my acting academy and with all the actors that I worked with, I really, again, it for me goes to the feeling place, because when you're on stage, you're accessing emotions and you're giving permission to emotions that a lot of the time we're suppressing. So whether it's anger or ecstasy or jealousy or bliss or whatever the feeling is, what happens is that the body then starts to feel alive. right?
Yeah.
Because there's adrenaline running through our veins. And then if we're responding to somebody else and there's a connection, and then there's a connection with the audience, and then there's being a vessel to the message that we're delivering. And, it's not just, at one time, you'd hear people saying that, oh, actors just want to be loved, or they just want to be seen, or I think it's way beyond that. I think it's really we're giving others the opportunity to feel. We're giving other people, the opportunity to grow and express. And there's nothing like that adrenaline of, all the cells in your body, and the fluids in your body, and the connection between your mind and your body, and then, and being alive. That's what I think. It almost becomes an addiction, you
Yeah.
know, to that feeling.
Well, I think that you are responded to a little differently too when you're on the stage. I think
Yeah.
that the audience responds differently when you're in this acting um, position, and let's say it's a drama and you're crying and you're experiencing this horrible thing, and if we did that in front of our family members, they might be like, what is wrong with you? Whereas when you're on the stage, people feel into that emotion differently. And I'm not exactly sure why that is, but there's something different about it.
Yeah, there's permission. It's a vehicle of permission, I
Yeah.
really feel. And even like my sister, who's much more of an introvert than I am, said to me recently that, when she dresses up for Halloween, she feels a freedom,
Yeah. Same
right?
thing.
Or it's like I have a class, I have my Thinking into Results program that I do with Bob Proctor and Sandy Gallagher. And, when I lead my groups through, again, it's more of a goal achievement. It's a big, going after a big dream, and people get phenomenal results. But I also have another program called the Code to Success, where I have people act out what's called their end scene. So if you're the star of your movie, what is that end scene? What does that look like? And you're the director, and what are you wearing? And if you're dressing the set, what are the props that you see there? So really filling in the images, right? So that you are the star. And in
Mm.
that, I've had people, there was one woman in my pilot program who was a cosmetologist who always wanted to be an artist. And at the end of the program, I had everybody write a 2-page scene. And in her scene, she was at an art gallery, and everybody, in the class took on the parts of, seeing her at the art gallery. And she said, and it was all on Zoom, April, and she set up her, in her background, her artwork that she had been working on. And somebody was an agent, and somebody was the gallery owner, and somebody else was her, her boyfriend, and her sister who flew in from New York and all of that. And, and shortly after that, she got the courage to give up her cosmetology business, sold all her equipment, and I
Wow.
kid you not, a year later, she has now been seen in over 10 galleries.
Oh, that is so cool. And that's a beautiful story of that, of the realities that we can create, right? And giving ourselves permission to be who we really want to be. And I think that the practice that you had everybody do and writing out their scene is really like this waking meditation almost. It's going into this state of creativity that that's how else do we create our realities. We have to be in that creative state. So that is really, really cool. I love that you do that with people, and I want to make sure that our audience knows how to contact you, because well, if they're loving you as much as I love you, then they're going to want to know how to reach you. So I have a couple down here, and there's going to be some more links in the description of this video below. And we have www.barbaradaoust.com, also www.thecodeToSuccess.com. Are those the correct ones, Barbara?
Absolutely. So you could go to my website, and on my website, you can see some of the programs that I have and learn more about me, and the Thinking into Results program, as well as the Code to Success. Now, the Code to Success that we have here on the screen is where people can download a free PDF of a life script so that they can write
Mm.
out in the areas of health, wealth, um, relationships, career, spirituality, contribution to the world. But what I add to that is where you create some imagery as well as some feelings and as well as some presupposing questions that I talked about earlier, where you go, why, am I so successful? Why am I so prosperous? And then you can record that. Once you've written it out, you record it in your own voice and you listen to it. Make sure that
Ooh,
you listen.
powerful. That is so powerful. And so that is really giving a lot too. So that's amazing. So what you're saying is when people go to www.thecodeToSuccess.com, they are able to get a free download template
That's
to be
right.
able to, and step-by-step guide to really being able to paint this great picture and the feelings behind that. And I know you and I have talked a little bit about, I know you've delved into the work of recording oneself and how listening to our own voice does something to our minds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And listening to our minds, a lot of people will say they don't like their own voice. Um, but that's usually a core fracture. It's a self-image issue, and the more that you can accept yourself and hear yourself, and even, if you add it in third person, if we talk to ourselves in third person,
Right.
sometimes neuroscience is showing that that's very, very powerful. It's anything to bypass the conscious mind, and to drop into subconscious, because conscious mind is our filter all day long that's trying to stop us from changing, because
And
we
you said 85% is negative.
85% of the brain
Yeah.
is hardwired for negativity, for threat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are really, really good tips and tricks. Speaking in the third person, and tell our audience again how you want to speak to yourself. So say we start a recording in our own voice. What's the terminology? You said, what would it be like? Or tell me again so I don't say it wrong.
Right. So the presupposing questions, right? The
Yeah.
why am
Yeah.
I so successful? Why? Because again, the brain is a search engine and you don't want to answer it. You want to let the brain discover it,
Yeah.
and to be focused on what is working. And then in the script, the code to success script, it's write it in present tense, because again, we don't know, subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between the past, the present, or the future. And this is a form of what's called imagined reality, right? There's like so many studies done, April, where,
Mm.
you have a group of pianists and they're playing the piano and a certain part of their brain lights up. And
Yeah.
then you ask them to visualize the same piece of music and the same part of the brain lights up. They've done studies with Olympians in Moscow, using visualization on top of practice, and which, they've had, different groups divided up. And the group that uses visualization on top of the practice is more often than not the group that gets the most gold awards, right? Gold medals. And, it's even with doctors, there's a study done on, it's called the expectancy theory. Three different groups getting the patients think that it's knee surgery, but one group isn't knee surgery. The other group is just an incision. And then the other group is actual knee surgery. And they're showing that the results are pretty much the same in all three groups
Like a
based.
placebo on knee surgery.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's really about activating and even turning on certain genes in our body. So, we say we have a predisposition for diabetes or a predisposition for something else, but really, if you believe that, you're going to activate that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you go down that route as well because, having an understanding that yes, we have all of these genes within us and that they can lie dormant or they can be activated. And so a lot of it is choice and how we're thinking and how we're feeling. And I just love being able to bring that to the world and have people have that understanding, because I believe that when we do, we're able to make great changes and we'll start thinking differently because we have such an understanding and awareness of that.
Yeah. I really believe that our biggest power is to choose, but it takes awareness, right? We have to be awake, not on autopilot. So in order to choose, I think the conscious mind, the primary focus of the conscious mind is to focus and choose. That's the function, focus and choose. And so the higher part of ourselves, the ability that we have is to focus the energy of the mind. So, how do you tap into that higher part in order to focus your mind? Because you don't want to keep focusing on the mind you already have. You'll just keep getting the same results that you already have. Right. So, how do you get to higher consciousness? Well, through reading, through podcasts, and listening to other people who inspire, who ignite, who, shake things up or give you a different perspective or viewpoint. I'm thinking about I'm writing a TED Talk right now, and it's called A Slice of Roast Beef, getting to that moment. Sometimes we just don't understand somebody's world or their perspective until we get to that moment ourselves. So I like to work
Mhm.
a lot with judgment of others and how to release judgment, because anytime you're focused on somebody else's lane, you're not really focusing your own power, and our big power is to focus our mind and the energy. It's like focused energy is like a laser. It's a laser beam has a lot more power than a diffused magnifying glass, right? And
Yeah.
so how do we get so laser focused on what we want and in creating more abundance or more beauty or more happiness or more joy? And I mean, and it's not without, like you said, life's bumps, right? Because we need to have the contrast in order. If we just felt happy all the time, we wouldn't feel happy because we wouldn't know what sad was. And if we don't have
Right.
sad, we wouldn't know happy. So it's not to be in denial of all the gamut of feelings that we can have, but to be aware of when we're in what I call an addictive state. Like there's sometimes you're stirring your cup of coffee and you have this overwhelming sense of anxiety. That's usually either a trigger, some trauma, or an addictive state that we're just in that neural pathway. We're used to
Mm.
accessing that feeling, and it's not necessarily a true feeling.
Right. Right. Yeah, and how do you really differentiate that? I mean,
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of studies as well is how long you should really feel, because it's not that you shouldn't feel. You
Mhm.
should absolutely feel anger and sadness and worry and all of those things that we say, oh, it's not good, but you have to allow that, otherwise it's just bottled up.
That's right.
But there's sometimes, I've heard people say set your timer and really feel into something. And then after that, let it go.
Right.
It's done.
Right.
Move on. And doing that, I feel like that doesn't allow you to go into that rut of continuous thought pattern, because I think that's where people really need to figure out how to stop that immediately. Otherwise, our bodies, they are that computer where it's automatically going to be that search engine and continue to go back to that feeling and want to keep feeling that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, once we
Yeah.
know that, it's good. Well, Barbara, gosh, we could go on and on. And uh, you are just such a beautiful light
Thank
and
you.
so inspiring. And all of the things that you have gone through and you've shown up here, the work that you have learned and done and continue to inspire others, doing Bob Proctor's work, I think that's amazing. And I know a lot of people know about his work and the Gallagher Institute and how that shows up. So thank you very much for being who you are and being the light in the world.
Thank you so much for having me, April. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Oh, thank you so much. So I want to remind our guests that the way that we can contact Barbara is going to be in the descriptions below. And if you have any comments, go ahead and leave the comments when you're watching this replay, and we'll be back with you and get back to you. And also that the Wellness Driven Life Show is here because of your generous contributions. Donate, excuse me, to the Wellness Driven Life Show anytime you want, any amount that you want. When you donate on the website at www.thewellnessdrivenlifeshow.com, you'll be sent a beautiful email and you can save that for your records. So I want to thank you again, Barbara, for being on the show. And goodbye for now, everyone, and we will see you tomorrow.